Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on your time zone. My name is Chima George, and today I'll be moderating the WEP August series for COP. I would like to ask everybody to please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. So I would like to ask everyone to please introduce themselves in the chat box and yeah, your contact details, what you do, and why loss and damage is important. So I'm Chinma George, and I work with Climate Finance Consulting. So what we do at Climate Finance Consulting is and connect projects we try and connect projects to finance. And today we'll be having Sylvia Diamond Dobo from Liberia. So Sylvia is a UNFCCC negotiator on loss and damage. She's an award-winning presenter, author, and sustainable development enthusiast. She holds a Master of Science degree specializing in climate change and sustainable development from the University of Cape Town, South Africa. She also has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science and also in Geology and Environmental Science from Rhodes University, SA. She's a co-author of the book in Criminology and Climate, Insurance, Finance, and Regulation of Harmscapes, a book that explores the role of insurance industry in contributing to and responding to the harms of climate change. Ms. Dobo currently works for Fauna and Flora International Liberia. She has represented Liberia at many international conferences and has contributed to the global decision papers and national policy. She believes in breaking the bias and fostering gender equality and places particular emphasis on mainstreaming gender and promoting the just and inclusive participation of women and girls in her work. You're welcome, Ms. Sylvia, to this discussion. Now we'd like to hand over to the founder and global lead of WEP, Dr. Priscilla Achapa, to give her welcome remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry that my network is not very strong. For some reason, I don't know what happened this morning. And so I won't be able to use my video. But just to welcome each and every one of you to this very special edition of our web development series. And especially that as we are preparing for COP27, for some of you that don't know what COP27 is Community of Parties, Conference of Parties to UNFCCC, which is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And this year, the conference will be taking place in Egypt from 6th to 19th of November. And so as Africans, we are trying to collect information as much as we can, but also to find out what are the aspirations of our brothers and sisters, especially as Africans. What do we really want to take to COP27? And on this day, we are talking about the issues of loss and damage. A lot of communities have been ravaged by the impact, as a result of the impact of climate change, and have lost the source of livelihoods. And yet, we are not really out there talking about these issues. So for us as African feminists, but also as Africans, and also as an organization, this is something that is very important to us. And so we want to see how we can articulate some of those issues for those that might not be able to be at COP27, but also bringing their voices to here, so that together we'll be able to collect all this information. And when we get to COP27, we'll be able to use it as a negotiating tool, but also from our various governments, because this is about Africa. It's not just about our organization, but about all our collective efforts. How can we address the issues of the loss of damage? We are talking about the African mobility, the movement as a result of climate change is causing a lot of climate-induced conflict. Today, I was at a forum where some of those issues were being discussed. And of course, there is, nobody is actually linking the issues of climate change to the climate-induced conflict, but most of all, the losses and damages that climate change has been able to impact on communities. So we have a very good expert, Sylvia, who is going to be talking to us. Of course, Sylvia is also a negotiator, but it's not in my place to introduce her. That is why we have a moderator who will introduce her at appropriately. And of course, we are looking up to her to provide the guidance and to also provide us with basis, because when we talk about climate change, most of the people don't seem to understand what climate change is all about. And because the jargon that most of us use are very abstract, and so we don't really link it with the issues that are on the ground. The communities in this regard matters a lot. So I just want to also welcome each and every one of you again for this edition. And I hope that at the end of the day, we'll be able to articulate and have a robust conclusions that we'll be able to use going forward, even as we continue to plan to COP27. Thank you and welcome. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Priscilla, for that introduction. Now I'd like to hand over to Ms. Sylvia to go ahead with her presentation.
Just a minute, please. Still trying to share the screen. Just a minute. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. All right. Okay, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Sylvia Diamond-Dover. I'm a UNFCCC negotiator on loss and damage from Liberia. And I'll be taking you through loss and damage from climate change impacts and the road to COP27. So just a brief synopsis of what I'm going to be talking about. I will give an overview of loss and damage, what it is, how is it different from mitigation and adaptation. We look at scientific backups, evolution of international frameworks for loss and damage, how far we have come, outcomes from the subsidiary bodies meeting in Bonn, Germany, the next steps in an interactive session on what are the demands of African women in this space. So what is loss and damage? According to Duran et al. 2016, loss and damage refers to the irreversible losses and damages of significant economic costs that are caused at least in part by climate change. But that definition has actually grown and transformed to include non-economic losses, which I'll talk about later. But also in terms of the United Nations climate negotiations, loss and damage is referred to the consequences of climate change that go beyond what people can adapt to, or also if options exist, but a community does not have the necessary resources to access those options. It is very important to know that loss and damage is very different from mitigation and adaptation actions. Under the convention and the Paris Agreement, countries agreed to avert, minimize, and address loss and damage. Now we can avert loss and damage through mitigation measures. That's when we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We can minimize loss and damage through adaptation. That's when we take a preemptive action to protect communities from the consequences of climate change. But what happens if our mitigation efforts are not ambitious enough, or adaptation actions failed or impossible to carry out, they become unsuccessful? That's when loss and damage comes in. So addressing loss and damage is the crucial third pillar of climate action. Right now, we mainly focus on mitigation and adaptation. And now we're calling for these three legs to look at loss and damage, to help people after they have experienced climate-related losses. When you reduce emissions, as I said, you mitigate. when you provide options, long-term planning, let's say for communities against sea level rise, you move them to highland. For communities dealing with extreme events, disasters, you might invest into early warning systems, you might introduce drought-related crops and stuff. Those are adaptation measures. But when we cannot do anything else, we have to go now to loss and damage. And these efforts are not enough. So just talking about the economic and non-economic losses, we spoke about the economic losses. They are quantifiable, they can be monetized, they affect resources, goods and services that are traded in the markets. For example, drought can affect the agricultural sector, or even heavy rainfall can affect the agricultural sector, where a farmer will have low yields in his crops. Damage to infrastructures and properties from flooding and mudslides. But non-economic losses are very important. They are not quantifiable. They cannot be, 1 minute, my screen is doing something. They are not quantifiable, they cannot be monetized. So these are like destruction to sacred sites, destruction of people, cultures, and their way of life, and also the trauma of forcing people to migrate, and the loss of family members and friends also. Okay, my screen is doing something here. Just a minute, please. Technical issue. Okay, here we go. So every good policy needs to be backed up by sound science, right? So what is the scientific backup of this loss and damage? I remember once in a negotiation room, one negotiator said, but we cannot attribute these events to human-induced climate change. Well, that was before. And this is an important part of my MSc research, what I did, probabilistic event attribution for the insurance sector, when I look at human influence on drought and how it in turn affects insurance premium in Africa. So we cannot attribute these events. And the first study in Africa was done in 2011. That was the East African drought. So the planet has already warmed. We are experiencing global warming due to human-induced climate change. And the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that's a scientific body, which provides of all the scientific information we need to address climate change. Other reports have been saying that climate change is expected to increase the frequency and the magnitude at which extreme events happen. And this will have effects on the life and livelihoods of people, especially poor vulnerable groups. Now we're talking about women and children. And the IPCC assessment report also said that as the magnitude of this of climate change increases of the events, we have the likelihood of exceeding adaptation limits. And when we see adaptation limits, we get back to loss and damage. And important, the continent of Africa is one of the least contributors to global greenhouse gas emissions, but also one of the most vulnerable continents to climate change. So I just have the map here that you can see. And unlike developed countries, which have all the financial capacity and capabilities to address loss and damage or to address disaster once they happen, it's not the same for developing countries. It's not fast and timely. Sometimes the victims have to bear the cost from the climate change impacts. And also when governments appeal for aid, it's done on an ad hoc basis, where after the disaster happens, they have to run for aid. And sometimes the governments have to reallocate money from their budget to deal with these issues. So the evolution of international frameworks on loss and damage, how has it been? My screen is really been having some technical issues here. So I'll just go through. I hope you guys are seeing my screen without the
Yes,
are you
evolution of
seeing them without the chats? I'm seeing some chats showing here. Are you seeing them without the chats?
No, we're not seeing any chats. We're just seeing
Oh, okay. So it's just for myself. I was concerned. Okay, looking at the evolution of international frameworks, loss and damage first emerged in 1991 when they were drafting the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That's when OASIS put forth a proposal to compensate small island states and developing countries that were dealing with sea level rise, but it was like miniature insurance scheme. However, UNFCCC was adopted the following year in 1992, and loss and damage was ignored by then. And then it came back in 2007 in the Bali Action Plan, but then it was only at COP19 in 2013 in Warsaw, Poland, that parties agreed to establish funding arrangements or to establish arrangements to address loss and damage, through which the Warsaw International Mechanism that deals with loss and damage was established. And when the Warsaw International Mechanism was established, it was given a mandate to strengthen dialogue among stakeholders, to enhance action and support to address loss and damage. So what happened at the following COP14, a work plan was explored for the next 2 years. Enhancing action and support, miniature finance was neglected. The WIN did not establish any mechanism to deliver funding for loss and damage. And then parties met again in Paris in 2015 at COP21, and a full article was dedicated to loss and damage. Article 8, which states that parties should enhance understanding, action, and support, including through the Warsaw International Mechanism as appropriate on a facilitated and cooperative basis. So developing countries managed to have a win in that situation, but developed countries also was able to get a test that says that loss and damage does not involve or provide a basis for any liability or compensation. So the entire international efforts on loss and damage didn't have anything on funding arrangements, and opportunities to gather support was really limited, because even in the final session of the Paris Agreement, loss and damage was not mentioned. However, during the review of the Warsaw International Mechanism 2018-2019, the idea of a network came out, and it became G77 position. G77, that's the group of 77 developing countries. So the San Diego Network for averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage is actually for catalyzing technical assistance to developing countries that are particularly vulnerable to climate change impacts. Reminding is technical assistance. So what happened in COP26 in Glasgow, UK, parties met again. G77 countries and China decided to put forth another proposal for a standalone financial facility for loss and damage. After long nights of negotiations and back and forth, it was rejected, meaning by developed countries like the US and the EU, and the entire proposal was reduced to a dialogue. So it was named the Glasgow Dialogue on Loss and Damage, and it was to last for 2 years to actually discuss funding arrangements for loss and damage. But then again, I feel like we've been having this long haul and pull on who should fund loss and damage, and I feel developed countries feel that accepting liability, accepting compensation for loss and damage is like admitting, it's like an admission of legal liability that will trigger litigation and compensation schemes on a larger scale. So yes, we know that there's a problem. We acknowledge the problem, but why can't you use aids, the development aids that we give to African countries, humanitarian assistance? But then loss and damage is more than just humanitarian assistance. It's human rights issue, it's equity issue, it's a climate justice issue. So there's still this long haul input between developed and developing countries. So we look at the outcome from the subsidiary body meeting that was held in Bonn, Germany, earlier this year in June. So the first Glasgow dialogue was held, the Glasgow dialogue that I just spoke about. But however, participants expressed their frustration because the United States was co-facilitating this dialogue, and there has been like historic blocks when it comes to loss and damage funding. The US has always been blocking anything that comes to liability or compensation to vulnerable countries. And negotiating the structural modalities, the operational modalities of the Santiago network. What happened? So we're trying to find the advisory body, what the role of UNFCCC focal points would be, the role of the secretariat. So developing countries are saying we need an advisory body. The Santiago network is for catalyzing technical assistance from OBNEs to these vulnerable countries. So it should be country driven. There should be a sense of ownership. And then developed countries say, okay, but we already have the ESCOM. That's the Executive Committee of Women. Well, ESCOM should serve as an advisory body. But the problem now is that ESCOM is not very inclusive and diverse. It doesn't include a lot of people from developing countries. And the ESCOM already has so much work. So developing countries like, we need to form an advisory body that vulnerable countries can feel safe to go to, and explain some stuff and get all the helps. And we want we want to have this sense of ownership because it's about catalyzing technical assistance from us. So funding for loss and damage, they make it to the negotiating item for COP27 CMA4 that will happen later this year in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt in November. So why is loss and damage so important for African women? As I said, it's a human rights issue. We know the position. We don't like to talk about the position all the time, but it's the truth. We are not responsible for most of global gas emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, but then we are suffering the most impacts. So you need to compensate these people and help them and you are waiting for mandates. You see, extreme events don't wait for mandates to displace people. They don't wait for mandates to destroy crop yields. And so you have to understand the human rights issue. And luckily, the UN just passed a bill that was talking about the right to the environment for everyone. There should be funds that would directly help these people that are suffering from loss and damage, especially vulnerable groups, women and children. And why activities we set aside for loss and damage should be shaped by the communities experiencing them. Activities should be what they want and how those activities can respond to their needs in terms of crisis. And funding for loss and damage also can help with migration and relocation of people that are likely to be permanently displaced. And you know that the violence against women and girls, so more displacement will lead to more violence against women and girls, and then we'll bring in sexual health and reproductive issues and all of that. So this discussion is very important for African women because we bear disproportionate burden, gender mainstreaming, yes, but when it comes to African women, our burden is like more different and more intense when you compare us to other regions in the world. So what are the next steps? COP27 is going to be held in Sharm el-Sheikh from November 6 to 18, 2022. And everyone is watching where the world stand by the 3.3 billion people that are highly vulnerable to impacts for climate change, where developed countries, quote unquote, be in solidarity with developing countries to at least have this standalone financial facility. Because if you see how the global climate finance architecture is like, we have funds for mitigation, we have funds for adaptation. And according to the IPCC Working Group 2 report, only about 16% of that funds goes to loss and damage. And all of the projects that were approved, only a quarter explicitly mention loss and damage. So we need a financing facility like that of the GCF that will focus only on loss and damage, because even with the existing architecture that we have, Africa is being described as a paddling pool. We hardly get proposals, we hardly get projects. It's either the proposals are not stringent enough, the English is not there, but people are suffering, people are dying, life and livelihoods are being depleted. And so we need quick action to respond to these things. And loss and damage is most likely to re-emerge at COP27. Developing countries are going to be pushing and pushing till we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So in terms of African women demands, I wanted to make this more interactive. I thought you were going to be seeing me rather than seeing the screen, but we can just put in the group chat, or maybe at the end of my presentation, people will be given chance. What do we want from COP27? What should COP27 deliver for us as African women? So I just put a few things here on my own of what I think we should be looking for. We should be calling for more than technical assistance. The Santiago network is good, but can we have a standalone financial facility for developing countries that are, very, very vulnerable to the adverse impacts of climate change? And we need to take into account gender vulnerabilities, because as I said, women bear disproportionate burdens when it comes to climate change impacts. And we have to understand loss and damage is not aid, it's not solidarity, it's not charity, because developed countries will always tell you, oh, but we always give money for this and that. It's responsibility based for the historic emissions that have been caused by them. So that is all for now. And okay, me and technology today. If you have any questions, you can just ask. Okay, I think I can stop sharing my screen so that people see me, right? Or should I leave the slides on?
I think I leave the slides on. We can still see you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Sylvia, for that presentation. I would like to open the floor. Does anyone have questions? Do you have questions to ask? Or do you want to put it in the chat box? I think now is open for questions.
Somebody is raising their hand.
Go ahead, Karina. I don't know who asked this. Damaris.
Thank you. I don't know if Damaris or I put my hand up first. So thank you very much for calling on me. Thank you so much for this really informative webinar. And thank you, Sylvia, very much for your presentation, which is very much in line with some of the work that we're doing. As I said in the chat, I work for an organization based in the UK called the Margaret Pike Trust, and we're working with MSI Reproductive Choices because there are a lot of country teams, especially from sub-Saharan Africa, that would like to country teams that work on sexual and reproductive health and rights, that are starting to really see the links between women and girls' access to reproductive health, or the lack of access, and how this is closely linked with climate adaptation and resilience. And as you rightly bring up, this is very much a human rights issue, but as you also said, it's very much on the margins of the COP discussions, and it's also on the margins of national climate policy discussions. And there are so many MSI country teams and other health and gender advocates who want to get involved in this space. And so we're working on providing them kind of with a guidance document ahead of COP27. But I wanted to hear from you, from the negotiator perspective, what do you think, is loss and damage a good entry point for including these issues in the climate discussions? Because as you might know, like IPCC recognized voluntary and rights-based family planning as eligible for climate adaptation funding in the past, but this has not translated to any kind of, family planning or reproductive health being included in climate adaptation. So there's a lot of work to be done. Just wanted to hear your thoughts as a negotiator, and where could we join forces? How could we bring this into the climate discussions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karina. Karina, right? I think loss and damage is a good entry point to talk about sexual health and reproductive rights, because as I said, when we have flooding events that displace these people, it leads to more violence against women and girls. And what happens if a girl gets raped or abused? She needs access to exactly what you're talking about, the family planning and all this kind of stuff. Sexual reproductive health rights can actually, it's a cross-cutting issue that can actually go to all of what we are negotiating in the climate change space. So I feel like loss and damage is also a really, really great entry point, because as I linked the flooding event, but there are so many events where you find that women and girls are actually vulnerable and they will need this extra helps, especially when we talk about all these help to people in terms of loss and damage. It's not only food items or relief items of migrating people from one place to another. It includes everything. Women's rights to all this sexual health, reproductive stuff. It includes everything. So I think it's a good entry point. And I feel like we don't need to wait for a financial facility or international protocols. We can start the change in our communities, with communities that are suffering from impacts from climate change when it comes to loss and damage. So we can start anywhere. We don't need a specific place to now say, okay, now we can call in the private sector, now we can call in NGOs, now we can call in women group. Everyone can start from somewhere. We can keep pushing the initiatives until we can get what we want from the international stage.
Absolutely. I don't have my video on, so you can't see me nodding very much.
No, I'm
to what you're
missing out.
saying.
I'm
Thank
seriously
you.
missing out on this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll continue the discussion. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Karina. Damaris, I think you can go ahead with your question.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and great presentation, Sylvia. So I was just thinking, what do you think would be the best strategy for African women to use to engage negotiators and African leaders to address the issue of loss and damage at COP27 so that it won't be the usual business of not getting them to come to any agreement that will address the issue of loss and damage, since they've been mobilizing and preparing for COP27. Thank you.
Yeah, you asked what would be the strategy to engage negotiators? Well, first, I think we need more African women negotiators in the room. There are not many African women there. So people don't really bring out these issues, and we need to be vocal about it. The first thing is we need more African negotiators being part of the UNFCCC process. And outside of the negotiator, when I say keep pushing, when the Warsaw International Mechanism was formed at COP19, it was a really critical issue because there was an attack from somewhere in the Philippines that caused really devastating impact. So it was really, really crucial. Also, the force on social media, I usually get goosebumps when I see like the women group outside the negotiating room calling what do we want loss and damage finance now. It has a lot of force to change things. So we just have to keep pushing. It takes time. It's not like we're going to go to one negotiation and say, okay, we want a financial facility and developed countries say yes. But I assure you that developing countries will get a financial facility, but it will take time. We have to keep pushing. We have to keep on with the advocacy. We need to engage with national policy, as the previous speaker said. We need more women in this space. We need more people who's going to be vocal about these issues. We're going to mainstream gender into this and say, look, African women, we need this, we need that. Loss and damage, yes, but look at the extra burden that's been placed on women. So we need more people in the negotiating room. Outside of the room, we need more force on social media. We need tweets here and there. I don't have a Twitter account, but I'm going to have one soon. We need more tweets here and there. We need people outside of the negotiating room. Just keep forcing people. This thing takes a lot for you emotionally. It takes a lot emotionally. So when you see people sitting in the negotiating room, a lot of things are going through their minds. Sometimes people cry. So you just have to keep pushing and keep putting that force. Like loss and damage is serious, and you need to address it now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Sylvia. So someone asked for you to show the slide on African women and loss and damage. And
yeah. Is it like the one for the demands, the interactive one, or this one?
I don't know. African women and loss and damage.
Is it this one?
I think it's Edwick Madzimuri. Maybe you can leave it on the African women and loss and damage while we wait for Richard, while we go over to Richard to ask his question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chima, for the opportunity. Yeah, I want to ask if there's room for frontline organizations to project the challenges women and children face in the climate, in the flood communities. Because you just spoke about communication, we need to push more advocacy. Can we have a platform or a hashtag where as the proceedings at the COPs are going on in the negotiating rooms, we have these communities, we have short videos, documentaries going through one channel in order to reach out to. So what platform can community-based local organizations working on the front line project communications and pressure to get that attention, this frontline of vulnerable communities that require this attention for loss and damage? That's just what I want to confirm.
Okay.
Sorry, the audio was really bad. Hello, Chima, do you mind question? The audio
okay,
was really bad for me.
Okay, so Richard is asking that you spoke about loss and damage, but how about people, frontline communities in flood areas? That what allocation or what is the what particular allocations or what is done to those frontline communities in flood areas? So he's particularly looking at flood-prone areas.
No, but apart from that, he is asking that during the COP, how can the communities be able to kind of show the cases of the issues of loss and damage to the negotiators to know that this is what is happening within the communities?
Yeah, I'm trying to say, okay, what platform can we have to showcase short videos, documentaries, pictures during the COPs on how it is on the ground, how critical, how these conditions are on the ground in these frontline communities? Because as it is now, we have women in IDP camps, in temporary camps. We have women facing a lot of challenges, even in the camp for survival, like the issue of forced prostitution, issue of pregnancies occurrence in high rates, and they don't even know from what circles. A lot of challenges are happening in those camps because they have been displaced. They are now living, and the attention of government most times doesn't come as at when required. So they are forced to become victims of the circumstances they find themselves as a result of climate change. This has a lot to do with their mental health, their health status, their nutrition. It's the vulnerability chain is interconnected, even down to the children. So how can we project these stories? How can I'm talking about having a platform so that as the negotiations are going on, community-based organizations can be projecting these pictures, these videos, these accounts, because we're working on trying to visit these communities before the COP to get these short accounts, real time, real life stories from the victims, from the vulnerable people, not so that we can have a platform to project these stories, because it's so pathetic. You need to, at times you said it's more, it gets emotional. That's just the plain truth in summary. So we want to see, okay, let's bring these videos live. Let them meet the victims. Let them see them. It's not about civil society coming to COP to talk any longer. It's not about us being voices of the voice. Let them, it's a storytelling kind of documentary where they will speak their own stories, not us being the mouthpiece anymore. That's the approach I'm thinking that we want to start using as community frontline organizations, so that it's not like each time we come to platforms like this, we are just talking maybe because we just want the attention or want to remain consistent or relevant in the space. No, it's of that. We want to bring the real stories to them, audiovisually, visually, with tags and the rest. So we need that platform, and we need to really see how we can project all these stories. That's just my.
Thank you very much, Richard.
So if I got your question right, Rachel, you're asking whether we can showcase these documentaries in the negotiating room, right?
I think at the COP, generally.
At the COP,
Yes, you
And side
can at the COP.
events
So
and-
there are side
Yeah,
events.
we need a
Let me just respond to Richard. Richard, as civil society organization, there are always platforms to where you can showcase part of the work that you are doing. And this could be through side events. And also we always have a people's pavilion, which is where most of the time the civil society are out there. But if you are accredited to UNFCCC and you have applied for a side event, or you applied for an exhibition, those are the avenues that you'll be able to use to showcase the information that you are providing for us here. But as an organization, Women Environmental Program, we're very keen on what you're talking about. So we would like to partner with you in that regard, because we are likely going to have a pavilion where we'll be showcasing one of these, not a pavilion, an exhibition place where we will be able to showcase some of those information that you're talking about. And also we're going to have some side event as African feminists to be able to state exactly what is happening in Africa, and of course, use part of the information that you're providing for us. That is where this forum is very important, because when you give us this information, we'll be able to tease out. That is what this development series is even all about, because we know that it is not everybody that will be at the COP, and it's not everybody that will be able to have the opportunity to present the work that they are doing. But at this point, most of us are able to join and articulate our own position. So we'll be able to collect all this information, including the videos that you're talking about. If you happen to be at COP, then we'll be able to showcase and where a lot of people comes there to come and see what is happening. As at yesterday, the UNFCCC sent a message that they have received about over 100,000 plus applications from just civil society organizations, and they are only able to accredit about 8,000. You can imagine what that space will do. So if we have spaces, about 8,000, then this includes civil society organization, INGOs, and the rest. And we have, and over 100,000 plus have applied, that is as organizations. And now we are getting only 8,000. We need to use that space to maximize our presence during the COP. And so for us, what we're doing here is to be able to get as much information as we can from those of us that will be there, and for those of you that will not be there, to be able to present this information at that forum, so that we can use it to engage the parties, or the negotiators. But of course, there are several avenues where these things can be presented. Thank you. I hope I'll be able to answer that question. But Sylvia, maybe you can also say something more if you have. Over.
So the first time I attended a COP, I was not in the negotiating room. I attended all side events, and they were really interesting. People showcase a lot. How do we get carbon? How do we store them in rocks? People bring all their ideas. So there's a really great initiative that you're talking about, actually showing documentary first-hand experience of what is going on, instead of us just talking like we have this problem. So I think application for side events closed already. I'm not sure, Ma'am Priscilla, but you can apply for side events, as she said, and then if you are accepted, you can host these events. And people do attend. A lot of people, the negotiating rooms are for party delegates. So you have observers, you have civil society organizations, and even party delegates that go to side events. So I think side event is the place to showcase that, and you can even raise the momentum in terms of advocacy with that. So once you have the documentary and people see it, there can be more advocacy, more protests on the issues, which can actually pull forward some people also. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Dr. Priscilla. Richard, I hope that answers your question. I think they really narrowed down on what you can do. And one thing we should always realize is partnerships and collaborations. So you can also partner with people already going. You can send your videos to civil societies, even AFDB or different organizations that are going to be showcasing this. Because, for example, outside the exhibition space, there was one COP that AFDB had different slides of, or rather the African Pavilion, they have different slides and videos of what is happening. So yeah, I think that way, I think you can start by talking with WEP after this on how you can share videos with them. And you can also look for other partners for that. The recording and presentation will be shared.
Probably from his country also, because most time countries have their own pavilion. Most countries do. So you can actually contact the UNFCCC contact person in your country. Then I think it's something that your country would be willing to showcase if they have a pavilion there.
Okay, so you can talk to DCC. I think there's somebody here from Department of Climate Change. And there's a question here, Sylvia, for you. Can you share advice on how to develop a career in the negotiations? This is from Nada Elbosi.
I'm still developing a career. But what I did was I reached out. That was it. So after school, I studied climate change. I reached out, exactly what I told him to reach out to people in this country. I reached out to the Environmental Protection Agency of Liberia and be like, okay, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I'm interested in. And I want to form part of the COP dedication. Because I was actually supposed to go with the dedication for my school. And I was like, why can't I go for my country, you know? And so I contacted them and they were, fortunately for me, they were really welcoming. And then as I said, my first COP, it was all side events. And then I hadn't really gone through a lot of trainings for negotiations. And then I'm like, is anybody doing loss and damage? I mean, loss and damage is at the heart of the research that I did. No, okay, let me get. So you have to be passionate. And I know young people, after 1-2 months, we want a lot of money, but you have to be willing to do free work. You have to be willing to be passionate. You have to be willing to support yourself at times at the beginning stage. Yeah. So you have to be passionate that, okay, I really want to be part of the negotiation. Why do you want to be part of the negotiation? Do you want to make an impact? Do you want to contribute to policies that will help to better people's life? So you have to think about where exactly you are going and push. Keep pushing, keep reaching out. If you have to reach out to your government, if you have to reach out to civil society organizations like the Women Group from the UNFCCC, other civil society organizations, you have to be willing and you have to show that you have a burning passion and zeal to do this. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Some people have requested for the presentation, and if you go to the chat, it's already posted there. John has already posted the presentation in the chat, so you can download it from there.
And just to add to the question she asked, another thing, if you go in the negotiating room, do not be afraid to speak. There are people way experienced than you, there are experts, people from developed countries that are way richer, or whatever the social status might be. Do not be afraid to speak. Speak out. That's how you get noticed anyway. Because sometimes if you just go in the negotiating room, you keep quiet, no one knows you are there. You go to climate change conference negotiation and you leave with basically nothing. It's like you agreed with everything. So don't be afraid to speak. Do not be afraid to speak. Say something, whether it's not even making sense a lot, say something about what you want, and people you get noticed. And also in the negotiating group, we have like the African group of negotiators, the G77 group, the Alliance of Small Island States. So you identify yourself with which group. I'm from Liberia. So the first time I went to negotiation, what I did was I tried to connect with the head of the African group of negotiators, and I will keep asking, because in the negotiation they use jargons all the time. You hear OBNEs, WIM, this and that, and sometimes you're like, what are they talking about? So I kept, what is this? And every time I need expert opinion, I just WhatsApp the vice chair for the G77 group, and always willing to answer. So you should be willing to learn, to want to learn from people that have been ahead of you in the negotiation. Like I said, speak up, take up space. Do not be afraid to take up space in the negotiating room. Everyone is equal there. Whether you are from a small country with 82 people, you are equal to everyone there. Everyone has equal rights. So again, it all boils down to passion. You have to be passionate about it. Are you waiting to negotiate all day and stay till 12 midnight? Are you waiting to be in the negotiating room at 10 p.m.? Are you waiting to be there at 7 a.m. in the morning? Because most, the trick, one of the dirty tricks for negotiations is that they will try to make more important decisions early in the morning and late at night. And sometimes you see developed countries, they take a lot of people to the negotiations. They have the financial capabilities to do that. And sometimes they will change shift, like somebody will come in the morning, another person. And sometimes you are the only one negotiating this thing or in the negotiating room. Sometimes you are even following 2-3 items in the climate change negotiation. You have to be there 7 a.m. in the morning. And next thing you know, you'll be attending one meeting, another plenary to another. You have to be there by 10 p.m. Are you willing to make that sacrifice? So it all boils down to passion and take up space. You are equal to everyone in the negotiating room. Take up space. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So
Okay, so
the presentation is in the group chat.
so please, John
Someone
has
said, someone asked, how does international policies affect or contribute to loss and damage? Well, on the international stage, if we can get a stand-alone financial facility, money will be pumped into that facility, and that money will reach to local communities. So international, going to climate change conference of all these countries is a spirit of multilateralism. How we can come together, and once the UNFCCC or whichever body under the convention mandates that this should happen, there'll be some force in that direction that exactly that is supposed to happen. Right now, we don't have funding facility for loss and damage, so people can do whatever, give money for mitigation, adaptation, and be like, we don't want it to go to loss and damage. But if you have on the international stage that we have a document that states that there's a standalone financial facility for loss and damage, definitely it will be available to developing countries and to the vulnerable communities. So that's how international policies now affect things on the local level.
okay.
I think Karina's hand is up.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm sorry to take up time and ask another question, but it's such a fascinating discussion. And I think there's a lot of practical points coming out of this. Going back to what you were saying, Sylvia, about being part of the negotiations, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of civil society representatives, I include myself in that. I don't consider myself a climate change expert. I only know about what I know. But as you pointed out, some of those issues are so relevant, and it's so important to bring those experiences. I was wondering if you could answer a practical question for me. So as a UNFCCC observer, are there many negotiation rooms that you are allowed in or not?
No. So they have open meetings and they have closed meetings. So in the actual negotiating room, only party delegates, only countries that are parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So we have different meetings happening. We have the COP, we have the CMA, we have the CMP. The CMA is like parties to the Paris Agreement. So only countries who ratify the Paris Agreement can attend meetings when it comes to CMA. CMP with the Kyoto Protocol, only parties who ratify or sign to the Kyoto Protocol. So they have some opening meetings that you can attend, like plenary discussions you can attend, but those deep negotiations where we actually do draft text and send this to the core presidents and stuff is really limited to party delegates.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So thank you for confirming that. So I think with the strategic thing that we sorry, go ahead.
No, so I just wanted to add to what Sylvia has said, that there are some meetings that they allow a very limited member of the civil society to join. Like when you have the plenary meetings, for instance, we have the 9 major groups at the UNFCCC, which happens is also all the other UN conferences. Those major groups, they will have to elect their leaders. Sometimes it's just 2, they will ask you, or sometimes it's just 1 that we get into, for instance, into the plenary section and sit on the table that's assigned for you to be able to make a presentation. But that the actual negotiating room, most of the times it's only the negotiators that are allowed. Just as Sylvia has said, there are specific negotiations that take place, and unless the countries are parties to such articles or to such program, to such negotiations or to such conventions, they are not allowed to be in. So even within the UNFCCC, it is so complicated. And of course, WEP is trying to see how we can also bring in step by step to educate, especially the civil society and Africans, on the negotiation procedures and steps. Because if you just get accreditation as civil society organization, the badge is also different from parties. Even within the parties, you have what we call party overflow, and you have party. As a party overflow, you can be in the room, but you can't negotiate on behalf of your country. So even within the parties, there are so many things that we need to understand, so many procedures and processes that our civil society organization need to understand when it comes to negotiations. And this is not just negotiation at the UNFCCC, but it's negotiations, for instance, United Nations Environment Program, for Convention on Biological Diversity. You have all those conferences, I mean, UN conferences that only parties that are there and their procedures for you, I mean, for civil society organization participation at that level too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priscilla and Sylvia. That's very, very clear. So yeah, maybe a strategic point then for civil society is make sure that somebody, you know, if somebody is like-minded organization gets on their government delegation. That we have a colleague in Uganda, there's a good chance that he will be able to be on Ugandan national delegation, and then we have a voice. So that's a really important practical point. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely. So for the government of Liberia, we get technical support from Conservation International. And sometimes we have people from the head office in Washington, D.C. dedicated from Liberia, giving technical assistance. So yeah, just what you said is possible.
That's really good to know. I work closely with someone from Conservation International, and she works on these particular issues. So I might make sure that she's feeding in.
Okay, thank you very much, Karina. So we've come to the end. We just have 2 minutes left. So thanks for your questions. I'll ask Sylvia to just give any closing remarks, and so we can close.
Yes, firstly, thank you guys so much for joining today. It was really great talking to you again about loss and damage. And let's keep pushing. Let's form part of the negotiations if we can. I mean, there's so many things you can do. Advocacy, you can start a change in your community. There are too many things. There's space for everyone. So let's join together and have this collective effort to address loss and damage, most especially on the African continent.
Okay, thank you very much, Sylvia, for that. Dr. Priscilla Webb, do you have any other things to add as we close?
Yes, I just want to say that I can see the frustration of other participants, especially those that don't speak French. I will assure you that the next month's episode, we will make conscious effort to have the translation in French as well. But this is a process that will continue until COP27 is over and even beyond, because after COP27, what next? So I enjoin each and every one of you. For every month, we are going to be doing this, and we'll be picking on particular issues to discuss to create awareness. Because for us, this is a platform to also share information, a platform to also educate ourselves, a platform to also learn from each other, and also as a continent and as friends all over the world. How can we share best practices and learn from each other? So for us, we are striving as an organization every day to see how we can continue to work with each other. So next month, we are inviting you ahead, and for our French partners, participants, be rest assured that we will do something to make sure that we have French translation. So look out for the next edition, and thank you very much for joining. If you have any other further questions, feel free to reach out to us or to reach out to Sylvia. We're available, and that is why we as an organization, but like I said, we are striving to make sure that we share as much information as possible. And thank you very much, the moderator, for doing a great job. Thank you very much, Sylvia. We know that the last time we missed you, but today we have you, and it's great having you.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I was feeling so terrible. I'm like, I had to catch a flight, so.
Yes, I know. But today we have you here, so we are indeed grateful to have you. And of course, each and every one of you that has sacrificed your time to join, I hope that you are going back with some information, and this information, you'll be able to use it for your community. Thank you, Richard, for that wonderful inspiration about documenting what is happening in the communities. Indeed, when we have evidence-based, we can use that to be able to negotiate. And this is very important, because when you are talking to negotiators or when you are negotiating something and you don't have the evidence to present, of course, people who are not within your community or within the space that you are negotiating will feel that you are not doing anything, you are just speaking from the heart, speaking out of context. But when you have this evidence base and you are speaking and you are making reference to them, of course, it goes the long way. So once again, I want to thank each and every one of you for participating, and we look forward to having you back again in the month of September. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Priscilla. Thank you, Sylvia, for a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Karina, Richard, everyone that asked questions. I can see Debo Olutayo. We're
asking questions.
at 12:02 right now. Okay, maybe you can just. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay, John, can you add to like 5 more minutes so that people can ask their questions? Even though I've said the closing remarks, it seems that it's becoming more interesting now.
I think we can have 5 minutes, Sylvia, if you still have time, or maybe 10.
Yes, I have time, no problem.
Okay.
Debo, you can go ahead. Then please make it very brief. Dimengi. Oh, yeah, Debo, please go ahead. Hello, Debo, you have to unmute yourself.
Or Mr. Hassan can go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Sylvia. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. We.
Okay. Good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Debo Olutayo. I actually joined the program a bit late. Yeah. When I saw the link to the program, I was like, oh, women, well, empowerment, whatever. So I felt a bit confused. Is it just about the women? What roles do men play in this part of the program? So I wanted to know more. So what plans, what roles do the men play in these programs? So that's That's basic question. I joined a bit late. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's
about
take the next. Let's take the next person.
So I just clarify that. Okay.
Yeah, we've
Hello.
heard you. Mr. Ask, go ahead.
Okay, it's afternoon here already.
Yeah, good
My name is Jimengi Hassan. I'm the Senior Programs Officer, Community Links and Human Empowerment Initiative. I actually joined, I had network reception issues over here, so I actually joined late. But I'm looking towards asking, is WEP open for collaboration to hold COP27 activities in the local communities? Because the challenge of everyone having to travel all the way to Egypt, is it possible for WEP to partner with other local organizations like ours to hold COP27 activities in the local communities there?
Okay, I will take the first question. Women, the name of the organization is Women Environmental Program, but it's not all about women, it's about everybody. Because climate change does not know whether you're a woman or a man or a child or physically challenged, it's everybody or elderly. So the target is all about everybody, but our emphasis has to be on women because climate change affects people differently, but it affects women more because of their vulnerability and because of their caregiving. Women, when there's flood, women will first and foremost look out for their children first, just as Sylvia said, and other people said, Richard said the same thing. They will not want to see their children being washed away. So in that case, women are much more affected by the impact of climate change. And that is why our series are talking about gender issues. But gender issues are not just women. They cut across every gender. So it's not just about women. It's our organization's name that is called Women Environmental Program. And indeed, we have a lot of men in our organization as well, as staff and colleagues. Yes, Hassan, we are partnering with civil society organizations at the grassroots level. While we act globally, while we think globally, we feel that the most important aspect of it is working on the ground. So WEP is open to partnership with other organizations. And indeed, we've been doing that. So we welcome every other organization that wants to partner with us in this, towards COP27, knowing that the space at COP27 is not wide. So we're open and we welcome you for partnership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Priscilla. Sylvia, do you want to add any other thing? Also, John would like to speak. John from WEP would also like to give. So Sylvia, then John will just close.
John, please kindly share the slide, please. We didn't get to see the slide.
Okay, I'll do that.
Sylvia, please go ahead. I think you're muted. You need to mute yourself.
I keep making a mistake. Okay, I think Madam Priscilla said all already. So in terms, men are also part of this process, and we need men to come on board. Lots of men. I don't know whether you men being involved in WEP or the negotiation process, because if it's the negotiation process, we have more men than women. We're even trying to find a way to make sure it's more, inclusive and diverse. So there's a lot of space for men to do a whole lot of things. So you're welcome, and you can join WEP also if you want to, and carry out some great initiatives. Yeah.
Thank you, Sylvia. Okay, Mr. John, just give closing remarks on WEP and we can close.
Okay, thank you very much, Sylvia. Thank you, Chima, I want to quickly, in 2 minutes, for the benefit of those who are joining us for the first time and who have heard about WEP for the very first time, I want to briefly let you know who we are, where we are, and what we do. So Women Environmental Program, we are a non-governmental organization. We were formed in Kaduna State, Nigeria, because of pollution by textile industries that inspired our founder and global president, Priscilla Achapa, to mobilize women to challenge that action. WEP was first known as Safe Environment Action before its name was changed to Women Environmental Program. We have a vision of a world where the lives of women and youth are positively transformed, and a mission to ensuring the rights of women and youth through sustainable environmental, socio-political, and economic development. So WEP has 4 pillars of intervention. We work on issues of environment, governance, peace and security, and climate change. And this webinar happens to fall under climate change thematic pillar. We have offices in Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Togo, and Tunisia, and Niger at the moment. And these are our social media handles in case you want to connect with us via social media. So that's about WEP. We are open to have discussions with you concerning partnership or concerning joint advocacy towards COP27 or on general climate change issues. You can reach out to us anytime via our social media handles and our emails. Thank you so much. Over to you, Chima.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. John. Thank you everybody for joining. Please look out. We'll be sharing the September web series very soon with everyone. And we're happy you're here today. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Silva. Thank you, Chima.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 What is it?
Bye.
I want to wave now.